Welcome back. You're watching All Angles on ENCA. The South African Policing Union is calling on Minister Ronald Lamola to take private prisons back to the Correctional Services Department. The union is concerned by what it calls barbaric and humiliating searches allegedly conducted in the privately run Mangaung G4S Correctional Centre, and that's in the Free State. Let's discuss some of these concerns. We're joined by the union's Lesiba Thobakgale. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Lesiba. And maybe just as a general sense for our viewers who may not be familiar of what the daily dealings in these private prisons are, what exactly are you raising as matters of concerns in the daily operations there?
Thank you for having us, and to your viewers at home. It is clear that the issue of private prisons, it is really not going well in our country when we look at the exploitation that the workers are exposed to. And currently we do have Kuduma Sintumule, which it falls under GO Group, which is an American company. We also have Mangaung G4S Correctional Centre, which it comes from a British company. It is contracted in that manner since the year 2000 up until the year 2026, and the other one up until the year 2027, whereby those contracts were signed so that those private prisons would have inmates there on behalf of Department of Correctional Services. And it starts with an issue where how do you have a 26 years contract whereby Department of Correctional Services is able to execute those duties of rehabilitating the inmates. But zooming in into what you are asking, it is a concern that at Mangaung Correctional Centre that falls under G4S, the workers there who are our members were indeed subjected to the strip searches, which those strip searches take down their dignities. They really do not take into consideration their constitutional rights. They really do not take into consideration the human rights in themselves to say human beings are not supposed to be treated in that manner. Clearly, females it is alleged, as we hear from our members, that females were required to strip naked and in front of males. Even when it is that time of the month, they would strip them, to the latter. And that on its own, we feel, and it is our clear position that human rights were violated there at the G4S Mangaung Correctional Centre, and that was not supposed to happen. And even the food that our members come with, they get to be checked so much to a level whereby they just mix everything. If you brought your several colors there, everything will just be mixed. That on its own, because of they are trying to manage the issue of contrabands. But when we look at the standards of the DCS or the Department of Correctional Services, other prisons that falls under government, that is not happening. And this clearly shows us that the private companies who are milking money because they are eating from the same pot of national treasury, because even that budget comes out of Department of Correctional Services, where it goes, it ranges for around over $1 billion for them to run those prisons. On its own, it shows that they've got no regard for human rights. It means that the workers there, whom are privatized, do not have rights if they can be stripped in that manner, if they can be treated in that inhumane and be treated like they are not human beings. So it is our call that we are making that the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Ronald Lamola, he needs to take back those functions from those private securities so that they can come and be incorporated into the Department of Correctional Services. And further to that, the workers there, we are concerned about the workers because those workers, they've been privatized as they are working for private companies, that they need to be clearly incorporated into the Department of Correctional Services, because clearly they have the skill, they have the experience, they have the knowledge of the job. And whatever treatment that they have received there, it needs to come to an end, because if the Minister and the Acting National Commissioner, Thobakgale, do not ensure that it goes back to the Department of Correctional Services, we will continue to see the exploitation of these workers continuing, because we know the tendencies of foreign companies whom don't have regards for all the labor laws, for all laws that are there in the country. And this has been a clear example where G4S and also the GEO group have done in terms of what happened in Mangaung.
These are very concerning and important points that you raised, Mr. Thobakgale, and one wonders, and it begs the question, is there no sense of oversight from a national or government departments to oversee what is being done within these private prisons, whether it be monthly visits by portfolio committees or the like? Has there just been an absence of that oversight entirely? What is the situation in this regard? Because surely if there was some form of monitoring, we probably wouldn't see the violation of the rights of these prisoners who reside in these private prisons.
You could clearly remember that when these issues of those two contracts were concluded, the 26 years contracts were concluded, starting from 2000, the Portfolio Committee had an issue related to that. And through investigative journalism and even through us as a union making sure that we zoom deeper into what is happening within those prisons, there's quite a whole lot of allegations where inmates themselves, it is alleged that they are being treated otherwise. But further to that, the workers themselves there is no regard of who they are in terms of the workers' rights that they have, in terms of all the laws, the labor laws that are applicable in the country. So it is clear that the issue of oversight is something that is not there. And that is why these prisons, they continue to ensure that they take advantage. They continue to humiliate our members. They continue to mistreat our members through and through, because they know there is not even a consequence management that will happen to them. They are foreign companies. They are just here to milk money from government, which government, when we go to the negotiations, we say to them that you need to pay workers, public servants. They will say that they do not have money, but they are able to give such contracts for a period of 26 years where they pay those companies over 1 billion per month, whereas that function can clearly be taken back into the Department of Correctional Services, and you hire the private security, the private wardens there, so that they can be incorporated. It will even cost less for government. So the lack of oversight, it is there. That is why we have such humiliating actions that indeed are violating human rights in this manner.
What about the argument that the reason that private companies were brought on board in the first place is because of the inability for government prisons to handle the capacity of prisoners in the government-led prisons, in that these prisons didn't have enough capacity, so it was important to bring alternative players on board. With you calling on Minister Ronald Lamola to take back these private prisons, are you not fearing that it might overburden the national prisons even further, and perhaps making the living situation for prisoners not one that is conducive to their human rights or their general being?
It is our strong belief that to sign a 26-year contract with a private foreign company, it clearly meant that government did not have a plan of building or even expanding the issue of prisons. So it is our strong belief that the capacity that is there within our prisons currently, it is able to ensure that those who are in those private prisons should go there. And it's supposed to be the mandate and even the issue of the objective of the DCS or government to ensure that they build even more private prisons, not to conclude an agreement or a contract with a foreign company to say, for this 26 years, you will run on our behalf such a service. It clearly shows that government did not have an intention to ensure that there is a contingency plan in place, but it was just about ensuring that whatever money that is available in this country be shifted to the British and to the American companies whom are rendering those services. So it is our belief that capacity is there. It is not too many prisoners who are there within those private prisons. So DCS should incorporate them. If the issue of capacity as time comes by, they should have a contingency plan to ensure that they expand or they build even more prisons within our country.
Thank you very much for your time, and I'm hoping that you and I will get to catch up should the ministry respond to your request and in the manner that he's responded. Thank you very much for your time there. That is Lesiba Thobakgale from the South African Policing Union calling for government to take back private prisons.